I reviewed my work, and it turns out there are 6 sort of fundamental counter-conventional mindsets, as I call them, that characterize the difference between a successful person in a big company and a successful entrepreneur. And you've asked that I run through them, so I will. I don't know if I can remember them all without taking a quick look at the list.
John Mullins spent years helping build the gap before getting his PhD and becoming one of the world's most sought-after entrepreneurship professor at London Business School. Before we get into it, I am Filipova. I quit my 25 years banking career to build a portfolio career and find financial and personal freedom. And this is Change is Possible podcast, where I talk to people to help you do the same thing. And this is Professor John Mullins today. I was watching your TED Talk about why entrepreneurs are entrepreneurial, and it was an eye-opener because you have all these qualities, but there I didn't expect what you said, right? You started with a question which was like, all right, everybody knows that, and then completely turned it around. So I just want to go through these with you today because I think they are very, very helpful. So what are these qualities that anyone who wants to start a business should have?
It's a great question, and I call them mindsets, as you know, Ani. And I wrote the book, Break the Rules, that is the book behind the TED Talk that you saw. I wrote the book because I was kind of reflecting on the research that I'd done over the last 20 years or so at LBS, and the research in entrepreneurship that had preceded me. And there was a view back in the 80s and the 90s that there weren't any differences between entrepreneurs and successful big business people. There's a lot of research done, and the academics who studied that question couldn't find any differences. But I know there are differences, and I said a few years ago, maybe I can figure out what those differences are. So I reviewed my work, and it turns out there are 6 sort of fundamental counter-conventional mindsets, as I call them, that characterize the difference between a successful person in a big company and a successful entrepreneur. And you've asked that I run through them, so I will. And the first one is yes, we can. So in a big company, you're supposed to stick to your knitting, right? You're supposed to know what the core competencies are of the business. You're supposed to stay with those things. And if somebody asks you to do something that's outside of that, you're supposed to say, no, we don't do that around here. Well, that's not how entrepreneurs work. An entrepreneur, if he or she sees a problem that a customer has that maybe they can solve, it doesn't matter that they haven't done that before. They're going to gather the resources, figure out what they need to learn, and they're going to do it. So yes, we can is the first one. The second one kind of gets back to what I said before. Good entrepreneurs focus on a problem, not a product. So I like to tell the story of Nike. When Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman created Nike, they were solving a problem for elite distance runners, right? People who could run pretty much a 4-minute mile. And the problem they had is they got a lot of shin splints from all the pounding on the miles and miles of training. And they got a lot of sprained ankles because they don't run on tracks. They run on dirt roads and country paths and stuff. But the running shoes at the time were made for people running around smooth tracks. So we're going to solve that problem. Well, that's what entrepreneurs do. They solve a problem. They don't think about the product first. But in big companies, it's typically all about the product. You know, there's Diet Coke and there's, Coke Zero and 87 kinds of Coke. You know, those aren't solving a customer problem. Come on, give me a break. The third one is what I call think narrow, not broad. In big companies, if you want to do something new, it's got to move the needle. If it's just some little thing that's not going to matter much, they're not going to let you do it because they don't want to spend their time and their money on little stuff that's not going to matter. But for entrepreneurs, the way you want to start is start with a tiny target market, like the Nike guys did. You know, elite distance runners. How big a market is that? People who can run a 4-minute mile. But once you get some success in your narrow target market with a very narrow product line, you begin to learn some things. Nike learned how to get shoes manufactured in Asia. They learned how to take in athlete feedback into the design of the product and the marketing of the product. They learned how to create relationships with the running community and so on. Well, once you learn all that stuff, then maybe you can begin to grow the business. And it was pretty easy to then call John McEnroe and say, should we do tennis? Call Michael Jordan and say, let's do basketball. So you start really narrow, and big company people tend not to think that way. They're always thinking about these big opportunities because they've got to make a pitch to the corporate pot of gold, right? That's going to show it's going to be huge. Don't start huge. Start really small. The fourth one is ask for the cash and ride the float. So I talked about Musk selling a bunch of roadsters to get in some initial cash. Same thing with Michael Dell. Ask the customer for the money up front and then use that money to do all the things you have to do. The fifth one, I call it beg, borrow, don't steal. Often in a big company, if you want to do something new, you have to prepare a plan that says, here's how much we're going to invest, and here are the cash flows we think we're going to get down the road, and we've calculated the return on investment that we think we're going to get, and it passes the hurdle rate, so give us the money, please. Well, entrepreneurs don't think about investing. They think about how to figure out how to get started in their new business without investing. So what can I borrow? So when we started Pasta Via all those years ago, we didn't build a commercial kitchen until we'd already been in business for a year and a half. We borrowed a kitchen that was vacant in the evenings, and we made our products in that borrowed kitchen. Yeah, we paid some rent to do so, but we didn't have to invest in that asset until we had a pretty good idea that Pasta Via was going to work. And then the last one is don't ever ask permission. If you're two guys and you want to start Uber and you're not sure what the laws are going to say about, whether you can do it or not, I'm not saying break laws, but if the laws aren't clear or are in conflict with one another and there's nothing legal to stop you, then get going. Don't say, could we? If the Uber guys had gone to the regulators in San Francisco and said, would it be okay if we start a taxi company that has no taxis? We're going to disrupt the taxi industry. We wouldn't have Uber today. We might not have a gig economy today. Who knows?
Yeah.
So don't ask permission. Beg forgiveness later. So those are the 6 mindsets, and they're all opposite to the way you think in a big company. Right?
Totally opposite. The thing is how easy it is to unlearn this, because with me it happened kind of naturally. I came to that conclusion, but there are a lot of people who don't realize that, and just, I don't know how we can help them.
Well, they can break the rules, Annie.
Exactly. I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that.